Yeah. James C, I got you. You Matter About Sports presents the Offseason NFL edition. Let's ride. What you know about it? The fans screaming, shouting. On Twitter, blasting the news about the team's action in the offseason. And yo, there's no reason to be stressing or guessing about what's going on. Now here's a tip, Holmes. Wine May, yes, got you, Holmes. Click the link, bro, and James C will take you home. Wine May, yes, presents the offseason.
You're listening to the Offseason presented by You Matter About Sports. I'm your host, James C, and welcome back to the show. We got a big show for you today. It is April 4th, 2017. We are officially 22 days away from the NFL draft. That's right. The NFL draft kicks off April 27th. That is on a Thursday night. So we are 22 days away from the NFL draft. I'm so excited. Can't wait for the NFL draft. I just can't wait for this process to finally be over with, because right now, you know, it's a dead period. Most of these athletes are going through their pro days, and you know, after the pro days are pretty much over with, it's just a whole bunch of speculation. What are teams going to do in the draft? Who's going to go number one overall? Who's going to pick this player? Who's going to move up and down the draft? You know, it's just a whole bunch of speculation. So we're 22 days away from the NFL draft. Looking forward to it. And speaking of the NFL draft, according to Ian Rappaport of NFL Network, Marshawn Lattimore, Ohio State cornerback, will be visiting the Titans today. He visited the Chicago Bears yesterday. We're picking at number 5. I've seen Lattimore in a couple of mock drafts. That would be a nice get for us. Remember, Lattimore is arguably the best corner in this year's draft. The only knock on him is limited experience, and he tends to have a hamstring issue. So those are the knocks on him. But he would be definitely a number one corner for us going into the season. But yeah, Marshawn Lattimore is visiting the Tennessee Titans today after visiting with the Chicago Bears. All right, big news today. Let's just go ahead and, you know, discuss the elephant in the room. Tony Romo is officially leaving football. Now, I say leaving football, not retiring. Hear me out. Tony Romo is leaving football and is going into broadcasting. Now, earlier today, the Dallas Cowboys were planning on releasing him. However, with Tony Romo going into broadcasting, he can retire on June 2nd, and they can put him on, the retired list, and kind of pay out his contract from 2017 and 2018. And I think that's what the Dallas Cowboys are going to officially do. Also, Tony Romo is going to CBS. He will be CBS's number one color analyst and will be matched with Jim Nantz, which means Phil Simms will no longer be on TV. Thank you, Lord. I got tired of listening to Phil Simms during games. He was terrible. I don't see how anybody can argue for him. It's not the fact that he doesn't know what he's talking about. It's just he wasn't a good color commentator. He just wasn't. And I think Tony Romo, with his knowledge of football, I think he'll be a way better replacement for Phil Simms. So CBS will make it official sometime later on today. But yes, Tony Romo is leaving football. So the question now becomes, of course, is Tony Romo a Hall of Famer? A better question one would ask is, what is Tony Romo's legacy? You know, what does Tony Romo leave behind? If you were to ask me, you know, Tony Romo was a solid quarterback for many years, but he just could not perform when in the postseason. When it mattered most, Tony Romo just couldn't perform. You're talking 2 playoff wins over a long career. It's not going to cut it. I don't think that's Hall of Fame worthy. I think he was a solid quarterback, put up miraculous numbers during the regular season, but he just couldn't get it done in the postseason. I hate it for him, but it is what it is. I think Tony Romo will be mentioned similarly to the likes of Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers hasn't won a Super Bowl yet. Now, granted, I think Phillip Rivers is a way better quarterback than Tony Romo was, and Rivers still has an opportunity to still win a Super Bowl. But I think when you look at, the all-time greats or the greats of our time or the greats of the decades, obviously you're going to point to Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, and Ben Roethlisberger. I think you put those in that order. Then after that, the tier goes to Phillip Rivers and probably Tony Romo at that point. When you look at the quarterbacks that have played, over the last decade, the greatest to play, I think you will point to Phillip Rivers and Tony Romo. Now, I think he's definitely in the conversation of the top 10 as far as quarterbacks that have played over the last decade. But when we're looking at the span of time, we're looking at where you're ranking quarterbacks, I don't think you can even rank Tony Romo in the top 15, let alone the top 10. He was a good quarterback. He made a lot of special plays. And to think of how his career started, the man went undrafted. If you're on Twitter, there is a tweet that shows how many quarterbacks that were selected before Tony Romo. And out of all those quarterbacks, only one was a Pro Bowler. And one had seen a Super Bowl. One, that being Carson Palmer, the other one being Rex Grossman. And, you look at how Tony Romo got his shot in the league, replacing, Drew Bledsoe, when he went down or when he was performing horribly in Dallas and, kind of shocked the world with his play. And then to go on to be an All-Pro, a Pro Bowler. But, it all comes down to what did you do for me in the postseason? And Tony Romo only led his teams to 2 postseason victories. So, when you're looking at that fact, Tony Romo will go down as a good quarterback, a solid quarterback, but just couldn't get it done in the postseason. Bottom line. I hate it for him. One would wonder how would Tony Romo's career would look like had he not suffered all the injuries that he suffered throughout his career. And bottom line, that's what it came down to when, he was deciding to either step away from the game or going to broadcasting or signing with a different team. He played golf, I think, this past weekend. And, of course, with golf, you got to deal with your back a lot. And I'm thinking he probably decided, okay, I'm barely, doing well trying to play golf. How in the world am I going to survive a 16-game season? Let alone, what team will try to sign me or which team I might sign to. If you look at the teams that were in a bidding war for Tony Romo, if he were released, you're looking at the Houston Texans, the Denver Broncos, the New York Jets, I'm trying to think, and possibly the Cleveland Browns. Out of those 4 teams, none of them really have great offensive lines. I guess you could say Cleveland's offensive line is probably the best after the work that they've done this offseason to address that situation. Houston's offensive line isn't good. Denver's offensive line is a work in progress. And the Jets' offensive line, they just got rid of their center, Nick Mangold. They just got rid of their center that's been playing for them for a long, long time. And so they're in a rebuilding situation. So, Tony Romo probably thought to himself, like, okay, if I'm going to play, I need to play behind a successful offensive line. The teams that were going to bid for him would not have been or would not have successful offensive lines. And he just probably decided I can make more money sitting behind the booth than I will trying to play this game. Now, granted, he still does have an itch. And it has been reported that if the Cowboys need his services, he will be willing to come out of retirement for them, as well as any other team that might need his services. Now, granted, like I said, like we just discussed, depending on what the team might have around him will depend on if he comes out of retirement. Obviously, if the Dallas Cowboys come calling him because Dak Prescott has gone down with the injury, I don't think there's no doubt in my mind that Tony Romo will leave the desk or leave the booth and will suit up. There's no doubt in my mind if they come calling him. I feel like he will do that in a heartbeat. But any other team out there that is hoping and praying that if we have a quarterback situation, we can call on Tony Romo, don't think that that will happen. I think really it's Dallas Cowboys or bust for Tony Romo. I think Tony Romo wanted to retire a Cowboy. That's why Dallas didn't release him when they said they were going to release him. That's why they're not going to release him now. They're going to allow him to probably retire on June 2nd because that's the deadline. And he'll go down as one of the greatest Cowboys quarterbacks to ever play behind Troy Aikman and Roger Staubach. So, his legacy is pretty much solid quarterback for many years, but just couldn't get it done in the postseason, bottom line. But I look forward to listening to him during the games because I think Tony Romo has a knack for broadcasting, but we will find out this fall. So that's the end of our show. You've been listening to the Offseason presented by You Mad About Sports. I'm your host, James C. I'm out of here. Holla at your boy.